Hey everybody, it's Moonbo here, and welcome back to some more Endless Scrap Mechanic. Today we're back in our massive ocean world with an aircraft carrier that comes equipped with jets that are ready for takeoff. So I'll show you around the aircraft carrier, how it all works, and I'll also show you the jet as well. It's extremely simple and so much fun to use on this aircraft carrier, taking off and also landing. It's gonna be loads of fun, so let's check it out. So for me, this is probably the biggest floating creation on the water I have ever made in scrap mechanics, so I really decided to keep it a little more simplified in design and make it a lot more functional. So we're gonna do a little quick tour here. There's not really a lot to see, but over on this side we do have a stairwell that brings us down to basically the bubble block room. This is where all of the bubble blocks are. There's a ridiculous amount of them, but you know, I had to do what I had to do. There is also a ridiculous amount of thrusters as well, because this thing is just so large. It takes up so much space in the water, and I mean, it's a good thing we're able to make a giant, like, ocean world, because otherwise this would probably not do too well in a normal creative world. But we can also go over on this side here. There's another little stairwell on this side here with a little mezzanine deck on the outside. That's just one way to get in from the water right there. And of course it brings us back to the bubble block room, and I decided just to use chairs to kind of move through the decks, and that's just because I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. Now over on this side we do have the superstructure. Now there is really no detail work in here at all. Like I said, I really wanted to keep this as lag free as possible, and honestly I'm really happy because right now the frames aren't too bad, and if you look you can see there is a loose jet. There's a jet on the loose right now, and it's not causing any frame drops whatsoever at the moment, which is really nice. And there is two more jets right over there that are welded to the aircraft carrier that you can deploy. Now if we move up to the bridge here, you can see that this is also a pretty simple layout here. Now we do have our captain's chair right there, and we also have some form of auto stabilization. Now this is basically a pendulum that sits in between a bunch of sensors. So the way it really works is it has a weight at the bottom here that keeps it trying to point straight down towards the ground, which means if we start listing or trimming in the wrong direction, then it will pretty much just pick up the sensor and move us in the direction that we need it. Now there is a switch right here that I can press which will deactivate this sensor setup, and the reason why I did that was because I also wanted to make it so that if we were sitting in the captain's chair here, we can press the buttons, which will of course activate the exact same thrusters in which these sensors activate. So a good way to demonstrate this is I can just pretty much lean the entire ship over to the right. You can see that the weight there is starting to move over to the right as well, and that is of course the pendulum right there. Now the sensor is getting picked up on the starboard side as well as the aft end of the ship here, so that means we can turn on our auto stabilizer, and then of course the sensors are going to send the signal to those thrusters, and they bring us pretty close to level. And another important reason why you can disable this entire self-leveling system is the fact that when you are piloting this thing and you start moving forward, you can see that the entire pendulum just starts going crazy, and obviously you don't want your system trying to react to any of that, so you would just turn it off. And once you're still and you want to start using the jets, that's when you can of course turn on the auto stabilizer. So I want to take this aircraft carrier for a quick little joyride in the water to show you what it's like maneuvering, but as you can see we do have a jet that is loose right now, so we're going to move that into position here. This is pretty much the holding spot for any of the jets that are not welded to the ground. Now this comes with 3 jets, but if you're playing by yourself, of course I would suggest you leave these jets welded, and if you have any friends that you're playing with, then of course they can grab the jets and take off and start flying around in the world. So I'm gonna level this thing off manually, and then we're gonna park that plane. All right, here we go. The ship is level. We're gonna hop into the pilot's seat here of this jet. Now this thing is really cool. We'll check this out after we move the carrier around a little bit. It's a lot of fun to fly. First-person flight is also a ridiculous amount of fun as well. But for now, we're just going to park it in the holding position there. Now, this can be tricky because this thing is constantly calculating physics in the water, so sometimes you get stuck or bounce around a little bit. But usually it's not too bad. So once we get those back wheels on the jet lined up, usually all you have to do is kind of just maneuver the whole thing backwards just like so, and then once those wheels go into the slot there, it should be fine. Okay, there we go. The front wheels are in. We're just going to wiggle the plane around a little bit. There we go. And the whole thing is now seated in position. Now, you could also weld this jet in place, but obviously when you're out here on the water, you don't have your lift. You can't put your lift down anywhere, and the bottom of the ocean is extremely deep, so it's not like you're going to go swim down and spawn anything in. So you have to make sure that you're really kind of focusing on what you're doing, and it kind of adds a whole other element of danger while you're out here on this aircraft carrier. So obviously we have that jet now that is in position there in its little holder. It's not welded down to the deck anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the auto stabilizer by pressing 7, and then we're going to press 1. There we go, and we are now moving forward. And as you can see, the jet that is placed there in its little holder is pretty secured right now. It's not coming out or anything like that, and we can obviously kind of start doing some maneuvers here. So let's start moving starboard side. This is going to be a big turn. Now we do have the manual control with those thrusters as well to control our roll as well as our trim. So we're pretty much just going to kind of keep on letting it roll to the right a little bit. And this thing can sink. It has sunk before because it is just so massive. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to turn the aircraft carrier around in the water here. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to basically just point it in the other direction. And the ideal thing to do when you're using this aircraft carrier is to pretty much put it in the water and then move it to one side of the map or the other. And the reason for that is because it allows for the most run-up while you're flying to try and land on this thing, and that's honestly where the fun is. So as with all my other ships, you can get out of it while it's moving and walk around the entire thing, and you can get a really nice view of the shoreline. There it is. And it just adds a whole other level as you're moving around and the ship is moving. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example. This just happened really fast. This is what can happen to the ship. If it starts leaning too far back, look at this. It starts to sink really badly. So I want you to know, see, I'm just showing you right now, that's it sinking. But if I lean the ship back forward again, it keeps it in the water. So if you ever use this, just always remember to keep the nose down. Okay, so this looks like a pretty good distance from the front shoreline there, and we will have loads of space for the run-up. Now, there's another thing I wanted to show you, and that is the front ramp that we were sitting on at the beginning of the video. You can see that it's connected to this controller right here. So if you ever want to, you can change the level of the ramp. So you can increase it or decrease it, and you can also turn it down to 0 like this if you want to grab the switch right here and turn it off. Then you can see that the ramp over there goes down. Now for me though, I enjoy having the ramp up, so we're going to keep that up, and that just kind of helps with how much runway space you need. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's also non-stop beeping here just to kind of give it that little ship vibe, and that is of course from the rotating satellite system up on the top. All right, now it's time for the exciting part. We're going to be taking this jet off and landing it back on to this aircraft carrier. I've been getting some practice. I feel like I am now quite the expert at this, and it is ridiculous amounts of fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut the cockpit window down. Now I'm going to give you a quick view of the first person. Now there is this line here in the middle obviously, but that's not really a big deal when you're in first person flying around. So here we go. We're going to move this out of our holding section right there, and we are going to get this lined up with the runway. Everything is lined up. We are ready for takeoff. All you have to do is press 3, and here we go. All right, look at this. Now this jet, like I said, it's ridiculously easy to fly. All you have to do is use A and D to roll the entire thing, obviously, and then you use 1 and 2 to control your pitch. Now, I decided not to add any yaw to the plane, simply because it didn't really add much. Now, the interesting thing about this plane is I actually find it easier to fly in the first person, but we're going to do a little bit of laps here around the map in third person just to kind of get a feel for this plane, what it's like to fly. And obviously, you know, it's extremely stable, it's really well balanced, and very, very light as well. There's very few thrusters, and the reason for that is because I wanted to have lots of control of this, even when it's going kind of slow. So why don't we do like a really cool flyby here of the aircraft carrier, and then we're gonna go into first person, and I'm gonna show you just how easy this is to fly. Look at that. Oh man, that aircraft carrier is looking so cool in the water, and I mean, look at this. This plane is so maneuverable. We can just pretty much stay directly over top of this thing by spinning in circles. But here we go. We're gonna go into first person now, and this is where the fun in this plane actually sits, because piloting this thing in first person is just so good. I can get so low to the ground. I feel like I just have so much control of this flight, and I find the easiest way to show how easy this is to fly and just how much fun this is by cruising around all of these trees. Now, there just so happens to be forest tiles around the ocean, and they have this really tall tree, which just gives you like such a nice obstacle to kind of fly around in. It gives you some like great chances for practicing as well, for lining up, like for landing on the aircraft carrier. But just look at this. This thing is effortless. I'm really not having to think too hard. Usually if I'm flying something, I can't necessarily talk while I'm doing it, or I end up crashing. But in this case here, this plane is just so easy to fly. Like, I mean, it's probably the best plane I've ever made. So here's what I'm thinking. I am going to land this plane in third person first, and then we're gonna take off again in first person, and then land it in first person. So why don't I get the camera out of the way here? We're gonna maneuver this thing. We're gonna do one pass here, and then that will be our lineup for the landing. All right, here we go. We're doing our final turn. It is time for the approach. There's our target. Let's level off, turn our main thrusters off. Pitch up a bit. Oh, here we go. We're gonna slow it down. We're coming in. Oh, look at this. And we hit the landing and stuck it. We're gonna hit 5 to reverse, and look at that. Now, I think it's worth mentioning, I did some testing with trying to get some type of like tow rope or like an arrestor, some type of mechanism that would catch the plane and stop it. And let me tell you, it was probably the worst thing I could ever have thought to try and do. It was not working at all. It added no benefit, so I really did try it. But here we go. We're gonna go into first person now, and we're gonna take off in first person. We're gonna do a couple slalom laps around the trees, and then we're gonna come back around and we're gonna land it just the same, and you're gonna see just how easy it is to pilot this thing. So we're going up here, we're taxiing to the front, and because of that ramp, we can actually get really close to the front here, and we can easily do a nice takeoff just like so. So we're just gonna go to the left here, and we are going to start doing a quick little slalom lap of these trees here. We're gonna maneuver around them, do some cool little flight patterns here, go up under that tree. Oh yeah, this thing, it's just so much fun to fly. Okay, so we're gonna go around this final tree. Here we go, and we know exactly where the aircraft carrier is, so we're gonna turn directly towards it. Oh yes, come on. Right there. Oh, okay, that was a rough landing. Now, I think I can do a better landing, so I'm just gonna go for a quick takeoff again, and I think that's like a pretty common maneuver technique as well, is like the touch and go on an aircraft carrier. So we're gonna pretend like that was a really successful touch and go maneuver, and we're gonna go in for round 2 here. This is gonna be the one. Okay, here we go. Cut the thrust and start lining it up. Now, obviously, at times you can't see where the aircraft carrier is because of the nose of the plane, but usually you just have to assume that if you can't see it, well, then that means it's in front of you, right? So here we go. We're gonna land it. Oh no, I came up just short. Now, this is a good opportunity to let you know about a really nice feature though, because obviously this might happen to you. You know, this was obviously staged. I did that on purpose for this reason here, and that is to show you that if you press W and 3 at the same time, it gives you enough speed that it will actually lift you out of the water. And that is right, that was a totally controlled event. So we're gonna go in for a redemption landing on this aircraft carrier in first person. Let's try and make it nice and smooth. So here we go. We're coming in for our final turn and approach. There's the aircraft carrier. We're gonna kill the engines. Let's get a little bit more height this time. Okay, there it is. Let's line it up. Yeah, we're gonna make sure we come up from above and not, you know, straight sideways. So here we go. A little bit more. I can't see it anymore, but that just means it's in front of me, right? And there we go, and look at that. What a wonderful landing. So that is the aircraft carrier with jets out here on the ocean. This is so much fun. I have already spent hours flying around, landing on this thing. It's loads of fun. So if you guys want to check it out, there's going to be a link to the Steam Workshop down below. It's going to be this aircraft carrier that has the 3 jets welded to it. Now, if you guys did enjoy this build or the video, then let me know by hitting that like button. And if you guys want to tune in for some more Endless Scrap Mechanic, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and maybe even turn on some notifications so you get the latest and the craziest coming from me in Scrap Mechanic. So thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will be seeing you in the next one, so bye for now.